Do you know English? If you're watching this, you at least know a little English. So let's watch Casually Explained, the English language.
While most people in the world are forced to learn English if
Mm,
they ever want to leave their country for an international
mhm.
career, English speakers routinely visit other countries for leisure, not learn the language, and then get mad when no one understands them.
Yeah,
English is such
I'm
an
at least
influential language, in
trying
fact,
to
that
learn
most people
some.
from English speaking countries never even consider learning a second language to fluency. If we look at a map of
Well,
Europe, we can see
I'm
that the average
considering
person
it.
in Sweden or Norway knows 2.5 languages, Germany 2, the UK is trailing with 1.6,
Mm-mm.
and America is still figuring out what a kilometer is.
Yeah.
One redeeming factoid that I've heard quite frequently from English speaking people is that English is one of the hardest languages to
Mm-mm.
learn, which isn't true. While I know that they just want to feel good about themselves, they should know by now that no one is allowed to feel good about themselves on my watch,
Of
especially
course, of
myself.
course.
In reality, how hard a language is to learn is
Mm-hmm.
actually only really related to how similar it is to the language you already know.
Mm-hmm.
So, for an English speaker, it usually takes about 600 hours of
Mm.
dedicated study and practice to
I
reach
took Spanish in
conversational
high
fluency in
school,
any of the Romance or
and
Scandinavian
now I'm
languages,
trying
then
to
around twice as
learn
long for Greek, Hebrew, or
Japanese.
Slavic languages, then around twice as long as that again for Arabic, Japanese,
So
Korean,
very
assembly, or
hard for
Mandarin.
me.
So if you're learning English and speak any of those languages, then pretty much the reverse
Mm-hmm.
applies. What is true, though, is that English has quite a few quirks that make it easier to learn than other languages in some ways, and quirks that make it way harder as well. One of the best features of English is that we don't have masculine, feminine, or neutral. We just have
Mm-hmm.
the definite article,
The
the table, the refrigerator, and there are no regular nouns with gender, making English the
mm,
ultimate safe space language. The downside, however, is that while I was trying to learn French, I would say j'aime la chocolat. And people would say le chocolat,
le
le. The
le.
North Americans are so stupid.
I
And
am
that would hurt my feelings because I was trying my best. But when anyone is learning English as a second language and they say, the chocolate,
the.
and then I say the chocolate,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, the chocolate. And I always think, not so easy now, is it, Baguette Boy? This is why you haven't been a world superpower for 300 years. What I'm trying to say is that while English nouns have no gender, the definite article the is a nightmare for most trying to learn it because one of the most difficult sounds to pronounce in English is the th sound,
Tuh.
th. I mean, not for me, I fucking nailed it, but for non
The.
English speaking people, who
Am
usually
I
replace
saying
it
it
with a
right?
Z, D, or an F. And if you've ever talked to someone learning English, you'll notice that one of the hardest words to pronounce is squirrel. Again, not for
Squirrel.
me, it's really just home run after home run.
Yeah.
But if you're really looking to knock someone international down a few pegs, here's a few things that can be extremely hard to say
Okay.
even for English speakers. So when
Let's
I put
see.
it on the screen, we can all try to say it at the same time. Anemone.
Anemone. Three
3,000.
thousands. Rural
Rural
brewery.
brewery.
No.
Thanks, guys. I needed that. Additionally, in comparison to Romance languages, pronunciation in English isn't always consistent phonetically.
Mm-hmm.
As an example, in French you
Bon,
have
son,
bon,
point,
son,
font.
pont, font. But if you try that
Hat,
in
rat,
English, you get
chat, wat.
hat, rat, chat, wet. See, it just doesn't work. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you come across a word you haven't seen in English
Though,
before, it's
through,
sometimes
thought,
impossible to
taught,
know how it's pronounced.
off,
Take these, for
wow,
example:
hiccups.
though, through, thought,
Mm-hmm.
tough, cough, plow, and sometimes you even have hiccups.
Mm-hmm.
Not me, though, obviously, I never choke. Within English, there are also many dialects of the same language. For
Mm-hmm.
example, while American
Southern.
English is mostly removing redundancies in spelling and saying eggplant instead of
Mm-hmm.
aubergine or niche instead of niche, again, basically anything that takes more power away from the French,
Mm-hmm.
British English removes a lot of redundancies from entire words. As an example, in American English, you would say, I have to go down the elevator and get a ride so I can go and work out.
Mm-hmm.
But in British English, you just say, I have to take the lift so I can get a lift so I can go and lift. And then in Australian English, they just completely change entire sentences in the most internationally destructive way possible. As an example, in Australian English, you would say, Oi, don't you love it when a good cunt's wearing a hot pair of thongs? And while most North Americans would say, oh my goodness gracious, Rachel, get the Bible, what that actually translates to in American English is, hey, don't you love it when your friend is wearing a cool pair of flip-flops?
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, though, every English accent has its advantages and disadvantages. Jamaicans sound cool, but I can't understand them. South Africans sound cool, but I can't understand them. People from Scotland and Wales sound cool, but I'm pretty sure they aren't speaking English. And then people from America sound less cool the higher their neighborhood GDP. Even for me, I have possibly the most generic Pacific Northwest accent imaginable, meaning that I am never allowed to rap. And while that means I am unable
What's
to live
my
up to my true
accent?
potential, the upside is I can do this. Hey Siri, okay Google,
Joke's on
Subscribe
you,
to
I don't have
Casually
cereal
Explained.
on.
If that didn't work, you're lucky you're wearing headphones because
Mm-hmm.
next time you have them out for 20 seconds, I'm texting your mom. I am just kidding, of course. I can already do that from my phone.
Oh man. Don't text her. Hmm. Which one applies to you? Does your country know a full language unlike the US? Or do you have 2 or 3? Comment down below. And until next time, bye bye.